Hey guys, Mrs. Bazio here. So today we're going to talk about the post-war world and the structuring of how the world is going to look after World War II. We all know that the period after World War II is going to be known as the Cold War. However, there were things that happened prior to the onset of the Cold War that need to be addressed, and one of those is the creation of the United Nations. Okay? So, your post war world. There was a plan for a post war world prior to the end of World War II. You're going to have one of your key vocabulary words is the Yalta Conference. And the Yalta Conference actually took place in February of 1945. And as you all know, there was not a victory in Europe until May of 1945. So, this is going to be with FDR. Okay, he's still the president. He was still alive during the Yalta Conference. Winston Churchill, and Joseph Stalin. And they're going to come up with a plan for how Europe is going to look and what's going to happen to Europeans after World War II. With that being said, after Victory in Europe Day and after the fighting in Europe ended, and prior to the dropping of the atomic bomb, you have what is known as the Potsdam Conference. Keep in mind, FDR has passed away. So now it is going to be President Truman and Joseph Stalin meeting with the new Prime Minister, Clement Attlee, from Great Britain. And they're going to carry out this plan. They're going to divide Europe into 4 zones. That is going to play a crucial role when we talk about the onset of the Cold War. Just keep that in mind. You're going to have the Nuremberg trials. We already spoke about the Nuremberg trials very briefly in a Nearpod, but the Nuremberg trials are actually going to bring justice to the events of the Holocaust and to all of the victims under Germany's rule. This is going to, it's a trial for all of these leaders who executed the plan of Adolf Hitler's and who basically carried out the Holocaust and who committed genocides. This is going to coin a crime known as crimes against humanity, and it is going to violate human rights. And the Nuremberg trials are going to play a crucial role in the creation of the UN, especially with the Declaration of Human Rights. This is going to place limits on how governments can treat its citizens and what governments can do to its citizens. Governments are no longer allowed to commit genocides. They're no longer allowed to violate these human rights. It's going to say basic standards that a government must meet in order not to violate human rights and to not have an unjust government. Okay? Ultimately, we have the signing of the United Nations, and that's really what we're focusing in on today. So, the United Nations, this is based off of Franklin D. Roosevelt's idea for world peace. And the only way to have world peace is to have a cooperative effort of the entire world. So, unlike the League of Nations, where it's only 4 who are creating this idea of a peaceful world, it is going to be everyone's invited to come in and play a role into how this world is going to look after Europe. Everyone that is, except for those in the Axis powers. Is what it is, unfortunately. But anyways, this is going to be established by a treaty known as the Atlantic Charter, and this creates the UN as a peacekeeping organization. It's going to have more it's dedicated to resolving international conflicts because it has more power than the League of Nations. It's actually going to be able to be that muscle that the League of Nations was actually missing, which led to World War II. If you look back, we have 75 years of the United Nations because they have that muscle power to actually enforce the rules that they create, unlike the League of Nations. Furthermore, they're going to create what is known as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and this was actually created by Eleanor Roosevelt. She played a huge role in this creation, and this is basically stating this is what we view as human rights. This is how human rights are violated, and this is how we're going to punish those who violate human rights. Right away from the onset of the creation of the UN, the first thing they dealt with was the issue of Palestine. Right after World War I, there was a lot of migration of the Jewish population into the Middle East. And in doing so, created a lot of ethnic conflicts, we should say. There was a lot of conflicts based off of ethnicities, okay? So what the UN did was they voted to divide the region between Jewish and Arab states, and it ultimately created the country of Israel on May 14th, 1948.